Now our closer look at that big shakeup in Congress. 74 new members joined the House and Senate Tuesday, and Republicans are now in charge. So what are their plans? We'll talk to three of the GOP's new power players in a moment. First, senior Washington correspondent Jeff Zeleny on the changes ahead.
What a big historic night for the GOP.
That historic Republican landslide in November.
You name it, Republicans won it. The Blue Man Group, now the Red Man Group, having lost 2 of 3 men.
Conservatives surging.
Tomorrow we go to work to fix a Washington that is out of step, out of touch, and out of time.
But it's not Washington outsiders promising to shake things up.
The Republicans will take control of the Senate.
Many Senate rookies are actually Capitol Hill veterans. 6 new senators are coming right from the House, which means the Senate will now have 53 former House members in its ranks, the most since 1899. There are seasoned Washington hands from outside Congress, too, like former Bush administration officials Dan Sullivan of Alaska and Ben Sasse of Nebraska.
So how does it feel? We're having fun, got a lot to learn, want to make sure we're on time.
Even newcomers like Joni Ernst of Iowa and Tom Tillis of North Carolina hail from the halls of state government. But how much will this new Republican Congress actually do? It means some of those no votes may have to become yes.
You've been called one of the new faces of the Hell No caucus. What do you think of that characterization?
I would like to say yes. I would like to say yes to a lot of reforms that would lead to smaller, more limited government.
Republicans now share the burden of governing.
We're going to function. We are. We're going to pass legislation.
The first test comes quickly in debates over the Keystone Pipeline, President Obama's new Cuba policy, and even his strategy toward fighting ISIS. The big question facing Republicans is how much time they should spend trying to unravel Obamacare.
Americans are suffering because of Obamacare.
That may be influenced by members of the last freshman class, whose presidential ambitions will cast long shadows over what Congress may or may not get done.
I know a lot of people who want to run for president. I serve in a body with a bunch of class presidents.
Those class presidents are now part of the new Washington establishment. For This Week, Jeff Zeleny, ABC News, Washington.
Thanks, Jeff. We're joined now by 3 of those new Republican faces on Capitol Hill. On election night, Mia Love became the first black woman elected to Congress as a Republican. She's the former mayor of Saratoga Springs, Utah. Tom Tillis was the Speaker of the North Carolina House of Representatives before he was elected to the Senate. He defeated incumbent Kay Hagan in one of the highest profile races in November. And Senator-elect Ben Sasse was a college president in Nebraska before he announced his run. He also served in the Bush administration. Great to have all of you with us this morning. And I guess I have to refer to you as Senators-elect, Congresswomen-elect. Let's start with an interview the new Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell gave. He says, what the Speaker and I are bound and determined to do is to demonstrate to the American people that the Congress is no longer dysfunctional. Is that possible? He may be determined, but I want to ask each of you what you'll do towards that.
Well, I mean, first we have to pass a budget. There's only been one budget passed in the last 6 years, so obviously we need to demonstrate an ability to govern. But we also need to admit that the big challenges facing this country aren't going to be solved in the next 24 months. We need to set the stage for a 2016 presidential election because there are a lot of principal issues that people want to argue about.
Senator-elect Tillis.
I think Leader McConnell is prepared to go back to something as simple as regular order, just to be able to take matters coming from the House and from the Senate and sending them to the president's desk is something we haven't seen for several years. So I think by just focusing on getting Congress back to function, then we can start doing things that will heal the economy and get our job creation situation, a number of other things back on track.
Before I go to you, Mia Love, I want to play something that the president said about the upcoming Congress. Okay.
I want to work with them. I want to get things done. I don't have another election to run. And I'm going to be as aggressive as I can be in getting legislation passed that I think help move the economy forward and help middle-class families.
And her spokesman also told ABC News that the president is planning big, bold, decisive action, that he has zero interest in relitigating old fights. Do you believe he wants to get things done and work with this new Congress?
Well, he has an opportunity to actually show that he wants to work with Congress. We have face dysfunction, because people on both sides of the aisle have said, you know, we want Americans to trust us again, and we've got that backwards. We have to trust the American people again. Put the decision making back in their hands so that they can make decisions in their homes for their own health care, educating their own children, and making sure that we're involving them in the political process.
You know, all three of you have been seen as overcoming the establishment versus the Tea Party, but eventually you'll have to do some voting. So let's take issues that led to the government shutdown in 2013. Will you support raising the debt ceiling when it comes up in spring or summer?
I mean, obviously, a country that functions needs to pay its bills, but we need to have a long-term conversation about actually dealing with all the structural insolvency in our entitlement program. The debt ceiling is less than a quarter of the real problem. The unfunded obligations in our entitlement programs are 3 and 4 times larger.
So it sounds like you would vote for it.
As a part of a down payment on a long-term reform, absolutely.
Senator
Well, I agree with Ben. We've got to focus on the financial underpinnings that we have to take care of. The debt ceiling is just a part of that, as Ben said. So we would, but I think we're also trying to focus on something that's a credible strategy for retiring the debt and getting our budget, getting our finances back in order.
And how about Obamacare?
We have to, again, get the decision-making back in the hands of the American people, and that means doing everything we can to change the current policy, the current ACA policy.
So Ted Cruz says he wants Republicans exactly to do that, do everything humanly possible to stop Obamacare?
Look, I was elected by my district to make sure that we get the decision-making back in their hands, and I said that I was going to do everything I can to repeal and replace it with something that is functional and get with broad health care reforms, free market health care reforms, and that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Senator-elect Tillis, I want to turn to 2016. Your fellow freshman Cory Gardner said this: we have a very limited time frame in 2015 to shore up the brand of what Republicans are going into 2016. What's the most important thing you can do in Congress to get a Republican president elected?
I think give the American people confidence that Congress will work again, that we will send measures to the president's desk that he will sign into law, whether it's the XL pipeline, whether it's regulatory reform, a number of things that we can do to prove that we can actually function and produce positive results for the American people.
And Congressman-elect Love, I want to turn to you on this. I'm sure you've been following the story involving one of your House leaders this week, Steve Scalise, who spoke to a white supremacist group in 2002. What were your first thoughts?
My first thoughts is, you know, this was 12 years ago. It's interesting that it's coming up now. I found that really interesting. These groups are awful, and the last thing I want to do is give them any sort of publicity or credibility. And I can say, as far as I'm concerned, with Representative Scalise, he has been absolutely wonderful to work with. He's been very helpful for me, and he has had the support of his colleagues.
Does it hurt the image of the Republican Party, and should he remain in leadership?
I believe he should remain in leadership. There's one quality that he has that I think is very important in leadership, and that's humility. And he's actually shown that in this case, and has apologized. And I think that we need to move on and get the work of the American people done.
And Senator-elect Sass, I want to end here with you. You know what the approval rate is for Congress. 77% disapproval and 20% approval in the latest ABC News poll. Where do you predict that will be at the end of your term?
I have no idea. But when you listen to Nebraska voters and workers, part of the disapproval is because they think that the problems in this country are so much bigger than Republican versus Democrat. Our national media conversations love this kind of seesaw game of politics. The American people don't think the future of their kids are a game. They want a Washington that's more humble, that focuses on a more important but more limited set of things because they care about the future we're building for their kids.
We wish you all